One of the things that was going to be obviously a dominant storyline entering the season was the top tier of the freshman class. And coming into the season, there were three players that stood out above the rest: Darren Peterson, AJ DeBansa, and Cameron Boozer. And all three of those players, when they've been healthy, have 100% lived up to the billing. Peterson, when he has been healthy at times, has looked like a video game for Kansas. And I will say this throughout the rest of the season and probably beyond. I've been doing this a long time. I don't think I've ever seen a player be as ridiculously efficient as Darren Peterson was a couple of weeks ago when Kansas played Baylor and Allen Fieldhouse. AJ DeBansa, to me, is a clone of Tracy McGrady. And his 43-point performance on Saturday against Utah further reiterated why he is in the mix to be the Big 12 Player of the Year and also a first-team All-American, as well as the top overall pick in the 2026 NBA Draft. And I think now we are running out of adjectives for Cameron Boozer because of all the different ways he's affecting the game. And look, I firmly felt that the best freshman that I have seen, other than Anthony Davis at Kentucky in 11-12, was Kevin Love at UCLA in 07-08, averaged 17 and 11, was a first-team All-American. That UCLA team went to the Final Four, lost to Memphis with Derrick Rose. After watching Cam Boozer in the preseason at a Duke practice and also against Tennessee in an exhibition game, that's who I thought Cam Boozer would model his performance after, Kevin Love. And he has surpassed everything that Kevin Love has done as a freshman at UCLA. Cam Boozer is running away in this National Player of the Year race. 23, almost 24 points a game, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. But beyond those three players, this freshman class and the depth of it is what's really standing out. And I think what we're seeing is this. So many coaches, especially coaches at the power conference level, in this climate of college basketball, want to be old, want to be seasoned, want to be grizzled, want to be experienced. And that makes sense when you consider the requisites of what it takes and what has been evidenced by what it takes in the NCAA tournament. But all those coaches that I just referenced want to be old, and they're trying to do it now through the transfer portal. And that is allowing certain players to fall through the cracks when it comes to recruiting. Not all the players, but certain players. But I was thinking, as I was getting ready for the show, just how many freshmen are having major impacts on teams that are not just going to be high seeds in the NCAA tournament, but are going to make the NCAA tournament and look to make the NCAA tournament with comfort. So I made a list. These are freshmen outside of the big three that have all had one time or another this season had major impacts in college basketball. At Houston, Kingston Flemings, who had 42 on Saturday, and Chris Sinak. Keaton Wagler, obviously, at Illinois. Koa Pete and Braden Burries at Arizona, as well as Ivan Karchenkov, who has been a very good piece to Arizona's puzzle. And remember, Ivan Karchenkov is a player, just double checking now to make sure he's a freshman, because sometimes these foreign guys come in with a different year. But Ivan Karchenkov is indeed listed as a freshman. Ivan Karchenkov was huge in Arizona's opening night win over Florida. Braylon Mullins at UConn, the best shooter in the class. Jalen Petty at Texas Tech, who again isn't somebody that's necessarily putting in performances like DeBansa, Boozer, or Peterson, but he's averaging just under 10 points a game for a team in Texas Tech that is surging at the top of the Big 12. North Carolina with Caleb Wilson. Arkansas has Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas. Darius Acuff firmly in the mix to be the SEC Player of the Year. Michael Brown at Louisville. I'm going to get into Louisville in the next segment, talking about the Duke game tonight. Chance Mallory at Virginia. Caden Lewis at Villanova. Nate Ament, obviously, at Tennessee, had a big win on Saturday against Alabama. And then Shelton Henderson at Miami. That right there gives you 6, 9, 12, 15, 20 guys in the freshman class that aren't just contributing, but having major impacts at the highest levels of college basketball. But here's something I think it's important to remind people. Teams that are strictly freshman laden, it's very difficult to win with them at the highest level in March unless you have elite support from upperclassmen. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples. In 2011, 2012, Kentucky won a national championship under John Calipari. Anthony Davis, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, obviously the 1 and 2 picks in the draft that year. Marcus Teague was also the starting point guard on that team. But that Kentucky team had 3 players, Terrence Jones, Deron Lamb, and Darius Miller, back from a team that played in the Final Four the previous year. You have to have and retain that type of seasoning if you are going to be a freshman-laden team. And we've also seen scenarios where teams that have really productive freshmen are not doing it in a winning situation. Rutgers a year ago had 2 top 5 picks, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper. Rutgers did not have a winning record. There were also examples of 3 players in the last decade, Ben Simmons on LSU, Anthony Edwards at Georgia, and Markelle Fultz at Washington, who were the number 1 picks in the NBA draft, but did not play on teams that went to the NCAA tournament. But for this freshman class, we are seeing unprecedented depth. And of the players that I mentioned, the top 3 are obviously the top 3, but the players I mentioned, I would say there is a large percentage of the players that I mentioned, maybe with the exception of Nate Ament, Caden Lewis, and Shelton Henderson, on teams that are going to be projected to be top 16 projected seeds on Selection Sunday. So not only are these freshmen doing it, but they're doing it on teams that have a chance, obviously, to have high seeds in the NCAA tournament. And it's interesting. There has been so much uproar about what's going on now with eligibility issues. We saw it last week with Charles Bediako. We saw it a couple of weeks ago, too, with James Nagy. The really great evaluators are going to find the high school kids that are falling through the cracks and putting up big numbers. And we have seen this, in my opinion, many times this season with freshmen all over the sport. You want to go down a level, look at New Mexico. New Mexico is obviously in the mix for an NCAA tournament berth under Eric Olin. Jake Hall is one of the reasons why. He is a real linchpin in that attack, and it's difficult to have freshmen right now play major roles consistently in college basketball, but we are seeing now a class that is second to none, in my opinion, in all the years I've been doing this. Now, people will always debate what is the best freshman class, what is who obviously went on to be the best player in the professional level. I'm not getting involved in that. I'm not interested in getting involved in that. What I'm saying is this: since I've been doing this, I'm not going to say this is the best freshman class because there's different ways to measure it. But I don't think you can say right now that this isn't the deepest freshman class in the sport's history. I don't think you can say it. With that said, we're going to have to wait and see how some of these guys perform as it gets further and further into the season and closer to conference tournaments and the NCAA tournaments. But it is very unlikely that you are going to find, especially in this climate, a freshman-laden team go far in the NCAA tournament without the type of veteran supports that's needed. Now, people can bring up the 2012 Kentucky team. People can bring up the fact that Carmelo Anthony led Syracuse to a title 23 years ago in 2003. He was ridiculous, but he also had a supporting cast of players that were veterans. Billy Edelman, Queth Duaney, Hakeem Warwick. That was all part of that equation.